Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us for this special live session. I know you missed us. Last time we talked to you was from a live broadcasting to you, actually, from the ABA International Law Section annual conference in Washington, D.C. It was live. It was an awesome session, and I know that also today you're going to have an amazing session with all of us. I'm Itzik Amiel, together with my friend, Rabbi David Schwartz. We are excited to bring to you another inspiring standout episode. And remember, this collaborative broadcast brought to you both of the ABA International Law Section and the Switch. But in this series, as always, David and I will interview an international legal leaders out of the amazing community of ABA International Law Section members and share with you new insights, ideas, stories, strategies. And I'm looking forward, as well as David, I'm sure I'm going to ask him soon, how much will be this fun again. Right, David? You agree?
Oh, absolutely. It's such a joy to be with you. Looking forward to another fascinating interview. And we really have a superstar of the International Law Section joining us today.
Great. And for everything else, I know I'm going to embarrass David in front of all of you, but I want to congratulate you again, David, for the wedding of your daughter.
Thank you so much. Oh, it's such a good feeling, I have to say. I love my son-in-law very much. What a beautiful family he's from. I am so blessed there's a famous Jewish joke that, bar mitzvah and bat mitzvah, when your child turns 12 or 13, is way better than a wedding because you get to take the child home with you. But wedding, actually, maybe that's even better because you get expanded family. So really such a joy to have celebrated that, and thank you so much for the good wishes.
Great, David. And I'm not going to tell the audience another thing that's actually is a blessing when you're getting married, getting rid of the person. So that we have in our religion. Is this episode is like go ahead, David. Sorry.
No, definitely not true in this case. Truly blessed. My daughter is such a wonderful person. I'm so blessed to know her and to be connected with her. So.
Thank you so much, David. So you guys know that the episode is titled Follow Your Stars. I mean, we didn't lose our mind. We just love every time to come in a new title. So again, you are joining us, and I can see you joining us. So I want our guests to know, David want to see. So please let us know who you are, where you're dialing from, because we know we're people from all over the world dialing right in. Put your name in the chat. Let us know you are here. And remember, already from the beginning, I remind all of you, because a lot of you are being here regular, if you have any question to our guests, put it also there, because we would love to ask your question to our guests more than we want to ask the question we're planning to ask our guests. But let me start with a quote from the American author William Peterson, who said, "Champion the right to be yourself. Dare to be different and set your own pattern. Live your own life and follow your own star." See, this quote, I think, is a powerful quote that really encourages individuality and independence. The idea is that each professional, each one of us, has their own path in life, and that you should follow it, even if it's diverges from the path of other people. Maybe that's the message we want to have. What do you think, David, about that, or about the quote?
I think that it really highlights what we're all in this world to do. I mean, there's an idea within the Jewish tradition that there is a book that lists every human being, and we each have a special role to play. And if you aren't your genuine self, then how can you play the role that you're meant to play in this world? And so, I think that's absolutely crucial to living a fulfilling life. So I really would encourage everybody to listen closely to what William's going to share with us, and to take away that lesson of following your own stars.
Hey, thank you, David. You're already telling the secrets. Who was our guest, but they will know already. No, they know. They're registered, right? So, but I think that by following your own stars, you're actually pursuing your own dreams and desires, rather than really simply conforming the expectation of other people. But the question we all should ask, I think, ourselves is, what does it really mean in practice? And how you can, of course, or how each of us can follow your stars to help you build your practice and your career even faster. And that's the reason we have the honor to have this episode, as David already shared, with Advocate William Hill. But that you can get some more insight. How can you follow your stars to build your practice and your dream? So before we invite William, as you know, we'd like to give the compliment people behind the back, not in front of them. So let's just give us some highlights about William. So William Hill is, I should say, William K. Hill is a partner in 𝘞𝑖𝘭𝑓𝘦𝑟𝘥 in Miami, and he's a seasoned business advocate, litigator, and a trial lawyer with more than 3 decades of experience. I know if you see him, you don't think so. It's absolutely true. William is the first and the only lawyer to be Florida Bar board certificate in both business litigation and international litigation and arbitration. William represents a client in complex cases, including class actions and international arbitrations. And he also clerked for highly respected Judge William Howlever of the United States District Court, Southern District of Florida. William is actively involved in the American Bar Association International Law Section. That's why we are here, of course. And William is currently the revenue officer for the section, but before he was the chair of the International Litigation Committee. More, of course, you'll hear more in this episode, inside the episode. So I think without further ado, right, David, we should bring William in. I hope he was ready. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
welcome, William. Thanks for joining us.
It's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me. All the great preparation we've done, all the setup, and just when we tune in, I have these two guys. I'm on the 35th floor here, and just as we start, I've got these two guys out of my window banging on it, cleaning it. So free show for everyone. Great timing. Anyway, it's great to be here.
That's awesome.
I think it's part of the magic of the law firm to get those people in the right time. I want to thank in the meantime Linda and Atuchka, Sylvia, all of you for joining and for the beautiful comments. We're all looking forward. Sylvia is also in Miami, but I bet you don't have the view that William has from his office. Amazing view. It's real view. I know it's not a green screen. So thanks, William. Thanks for your time, for having you here. And we won't probably dive in right away to conversation. So David, I'll let you start the conversation.
Sure, absolutely. William, it's great to have you on our Standout series. And of course, we titled this Follow Your Stars. So in our conversation where we had a chance to sort of hear a little bit about your history, I loved hearing how that phrase, follow your stars, captured a number of aspects of your becoming a successful international arbitration specialist. So if you could share with our audience how stars have led you to become who you are, that'd be fabulous.
Sure. And I liked both your quotes and stories at the beginning, but I've got one too. This is from Julius Caesar, which is a play that's very popular in my family. We tune in every March 15th on the Ides of March and watch Julius Caesar. And this is one of my favorite quotes from Cassius. Men at some time are masters of their fates. The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves. We all have stars. We have paths. The stars are fixed. They're in the sky. But what we do with them is what we do with them, and how we follow them, how we set our goals, and how we follow through with the goals. That's up to us. So the stars are never at fault. It's our ability to follow them that we have to challenge ourselves to do. So when we were talking before, I was thinking about how I got involved in international law. And the truth is that it started early in my life. I've always been interested in international things. It kind of started with my father, who in the Army in the 1950s was being shipped off to be an advisor to the French at a place called Dien Bien Phu in Vietnam. While he was in Guam on a plane about to fly to Vietnam, Dien Bien Phu fell. The French were all captured. He would have been captured, but he escaped that fate and instead was sent to Japan for a year and a half. He ran a construction depot in Japan and loved Japan. Brought back great stories from Japan, great things. Taught me how to count on an abacus. So I keep this here. I don't even, no calculator. I just use this. So he was very interested in international things. And then even though we lived in a very small town in Central Florida, he had an international perspective. He was in construction. He traveled all over the world looking for ways to expand his business. He went to Lebanon, Saudi Arabia. And when I was in high school, he got involved in projects in Costa Rica, and we ended up going to Costa Rica many times while I was in high school. So it was the international perspective was just a big part of my life from early on, and largely from my father and his kind of expansive worldview. as a lawyer, the interest in becoming a lawyer came from the other side of my family. My mother went back to law school my freshman year of college, of course, somewhat later point in life, and graduated from law school in her mid-40s. She had always wanted to be a lawyer. She had an aunt who was the third woman to pass the bar in the state of Alabama around the turn of the century, and had been a lawyer way back when, and was kind of my mother's model for her professional life. So I had an interest in being a lawyer since she was juggling family and kids and everything else. I occasionally had to go to law school for her when I was still in college to take notes. And she always said, if you get asked a question, just don't answer, just don't even try. Okay. So, so I got a taste of law school early on. And then went to law school. In law school, I had an international perspective that I had always had. And if there were majors, of course, in law school, we don't have majors, but if there had been a major, I would have been an international law major. I took every international class that was offered. And my two main professor mentors in law school were Michael Reisman and Harold Koh. David, I think you know both of them. We share an alma mater. So I studied with those two wonderful professors, and just decided that I wanted to pursue a career as much as I could in international law. I clerked one summer for a large firm that had a very robust international arbitration practice. I loved it. And then I made kind of a different turn. I clerked in Miami for a wonderful federal judge. You mentioned him, Judge 𝘭𝑚𝘱𝑖𝑟𝘥, and got very interested in Miami, in the legal community. I met a lot of great lawyers. We had great cases, including one really, really special case where the United States government, some of you will remember it, indicted sitting Panamanian President Manuel Noriega. And that case landed on Judge 𝘭𝑚𝘱𝑖𝑟𝘥's docket and on my desk as the clerk. So I got to work on a very interesting public law case as I was clerking. The other part of this, the stars. So when we talked before, you asked about the sailboats in the back. Sailing is a big love of mine. It has been for a long time. And my father also got involved in it. And we had a sailboat. We started racing the sailboat across the Gulf of Mexico every year. And in those days, this may seem strange, but we didn't have electronic navigation. We literally were still navigating by sextants, measuring the angle of the stars. And I got very interesting. I did some training in celestial navigation. I already loved astronomy, and I got very, very involved in doing celestial navigation. So literally the topic here of follow your stars is something important to me, because I've often followed the stars, across seas and oceans. So that's really the theme, that learning celestial navigation, learning to stick with something, follow a goal. That's really my following the stars. Now, then in Miami, so I moved to Miami. I joined a great firm. My practice was largely domestic for the first few years. And that's one thing that I would just mention to young lawyers. Sometimes there's a feeling that to be an international lawyer, you have to be old. I'm here to tell you that it's not true. You don't have to be old, but a certain amount of experience does go a long way. We as international lawyers, I think, pride ourselves in having a certain level of experience and expertise that we can bring to the problems to be able to qualify to handle important international law cases. So there is a progression, but certainly I did not lose track of the fact that my great love in the law was always international law. And even though the first part of my practice happened to be more domestic, I continued to look for international cases. And they came over time. My first big international arbitration was representing a large multinational company from Mexico involving an international joint venture in financial services. Extremely interesting international arbitration. Since that time, roughly half of my arbitration practice has been international arbitration, and it's the part that I truly love.
Great. Thank you very much, William, for sharing your inspiring stories. I know there are a lot of people here for a treat because I bet a lot of them know you but never heard all those stories. So I'm sure we can learn a lot because I always said, facts tell, stories sell. To all of you listening right now, remember stories is one of the most important elements to help you build your personal brand and stand out of the crowd since it's your stories. And you see it very good evidence from William because that's his story. Nobody can steal it away from him. But listening to you, William, carefully, it sounds like you pick up your stars you want to follow up in your life. They didn't just appear or you just realizing it. You picked them up because you do during your preparatory conversation. I remember you shared with us another story how you came to represent Chile in the country efforts to recover funds sold by Pinochet, the dictator. Since we all can learn from this story, I think we want to ask you also here, if you please so kind to share with us, how did that happen? Well, how does that relate to our title as well?
Yeah, and following the stars, there are a lot of stars in the sky. You do have to pick the ones that are yours and keep your eye on those. So I did have the opportunity to represent the government of Chile in a number of very important and interesting cases involving claims by the government against United States-based banks who had assisted former President Pinochet in stealing and laundering funds from the government. The way I came to the case was pretty interesting. By that time I was a bit more seasoned lawyer. This was, I guess, 2009. And I'd handled a number of, international cases and complex commercial cases. These were complex commercial legal issues, RICO, money laundering. And so the way it happened, my stars also, I went to a tiny college in Annapolis, Maryland called St. John's College. It's the size of a postage stamp. It's 400 students. It's a tiny college. There's 100 people in every class. So as a result of having a college that small, you get to be pretty good friends with everyone because there aren't many people around. So one of my friends at St. John's was also, he's from Miami. He also went to law school at the same time I did. And I had just changed jobs to a new firm. He changed jobs to my old firm, and he was sitting in my old office there. We had laughed about that. We were in the same building. And so I was going down for lunch one day, came upstairs, saw Pedro going down the escalator. He said, "Dude, come down. I've been meaning to talk to you." So I went to talk to Pedro, and he said, "I've just filed a bunch of cases against banks representing the government of Chile, Pinochet, money laundering. They're complicated cases. But when I moved firms, I found out I had a conflict with one of the banks. So I need somebody to take over the case. Could you do it?" And I said, "Sure. Of course, I would love to do a case that sounded that interesting." He says, "Don't worry about it. It's complicated, but I wrote them all up. You can just follow along with me. It'll be easy." I said, "Great." I get interviews with the government. The government confirms and hires me. I get the case. A week later, I get a call from a breathless Pedro saying, "Dude, I need you to take over all the other cases. We've got more conflicts and I need to be out of them completely." So I went from being able to, ride his coattails, let him take the lead on these cases that he had written up and put together to being the one. So all of a sudden I had all four of these big RICO money laundering cases against banks who were none too happy about being sued for RICO money laundering. So they were aggressive cases. I ended up going to Chile a number of times, working with witnesses there, working with the government lawyers, meeting important Chilean government figures. I even met the ambassador to the UN at one point. It was quite an interesting case, and I was lucky to get the opportunity. But what it made me think of was another quote from a Roman philosopher, Seneca, who said, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. So, the opportunity was staying in touch with Pedro, being close friends with him, his knowing me, his trusting. We often talk about in business relations that depth of your relationships is more important than how many you have. So this happened to be a lawyer whom I had known for many years, whom we had gone through things in school. We trusted each other, and that's how I was able to get the recommendation to get that important case. Plus, having by that time, moved along in my practice to where I had a certain amount of experience and was able to offer what was needed to effectively represent the government on the case.
Thanks, William. It's amazing. And just to remind everybody, he didn't speak any Spanish in that time. So that's what you know. So. But thank you so much. And I think it's also a good example, again, what I always said, build it before you need it, well in advance. In fact, the best time, if you hear it carefully, to build relationship with people is when they do not need you or your services, because that's purely authentic, sincere. And when they really need you, guess what? You meet them in the elevator and you get, like William, all these opportunities. You can type your question in the chat box on the video. If you have anything else to say, if you want to tell us who you are, let us know, please, because we're looking forward to hear from you. Again, we are here with William Amiel. Those of you joining us right now, talking live about following your stars. David, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Itzik. William, I just want you to give that quote again, because it's so perfect, because it really follows a theme that we have been sharing all year long. And so, can you quote that Seneca quote again? Because I think it's so important. It really highlights what something that Itzik has been saying, but I think a theme that we've seen throughout this entire time.
Sure. Seneca said, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity.
Yeah. I just want people to just sit with that. Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. Really, it's such an important point. Well, I want to.
And just allow me, David, to say one thing.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Absolutely.
And knock on your door only once, so remember that as well. So.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not going to come again anyway.
That's right. Don't miss it when that door opens. You got to be ready. So and that's exactly what happened. William, you were ready. You were willing to take the first step, and then of course, as it happened, it was a whole lot, a lot more steps that you ended up being able to take. And of course, it facilitated much more as a result, I'm sure.
I actually have a very terrible dad joke, which I won't tell in its entirety, but the punchline is 𝘊𝑚𝘱𝑖𝑛 only tunes once.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. So I want to pivot, because we've been able to hear about two different aspects of your personality so far, but I know there's a third that just further highlights the special aspect of who you are, because I've seen you not in your office, but in your Zoom room at home, and I know you've got in the background an absolutely beautiful guitar. So can you tell us about the guitar and the role that music plays in your life and in your family?
Sure. Yeah, a lot of you have probably been on Zoom calls with me at home, especially when we were in the lockdown for so long. And yes, I do have the guitars sitting back there. My family are all very involved in music. My wife Lori is a very gifted pianist. My daughter 𝘊𝑚𝘱𝑖𝘍, who also on the international realm is now working full-time for the State Department. She got her master's degree in international relations and is now pursuing her dream, following her stars in working full-time for the Department of State and loving her new job there. And my son is a budding novelist, but also a musician. My daughter 𝘊𝑚𝘱𝑖𝑍 plays violin. My son Ethan plays the French horn. They played in orchestras together all through high school and even college. They went to college together. And when Ethan was younger, he was taking French horn lessons from a very fine French horn teacher. I used to go with him, and one day the French horn teacher pulled out a guitar. his real dream, his passion is making guitars. He's a luthier, and he makes absolutely beautiful guitars. He pulled this guitar down that it was just heartbreakingly beautiful, sounded wonderful, and he had made it. And I thought that was a really special thing, and mentioned it to my wife, and lo and behold, at an upcoming birthday, the guitar appeared. So yeah, so I do play whenever I get a chance. I sing terribly, but I do really enjoy all the music. As I said, all the other members of my family are much more accomplished musicians than I am, but I go along. I also play the saxophone. I grew up playing saxophone, and there will be a story on that at the very end of this about the saxophone.
All right, intriguing.
And yes, I do. I know you admit I do. If you've ever been through a mediation, especially on Zoom, it's one of the most boring things that you can ever go through. You have long periods of time while you're waiting for the mediator to finish talking to the other side and come back to your room. So yes, I do on occasion in long, boring mediations pull out the guitar and entertain the clients with that.
Strum a few bars or whatever they say.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
Right. Such an important point. I think it's also, by the way, not to, again, show us you should not forget your passion once you're following your stars. I think also the story just told us again, William, and I remember he told us the first time, it's actually true evidence to my belief that true fulfillment and self-realization could only be achieved by embracing really one's own individuality and really daring to follow this path you're talking and resonate deeply within. And I think it shows again in each story you're telling us. I'm sure everybody listening to us now thinking about their own stories they never told, but those opportunities to stand up with their authenticity, with their ways of following the stars. Again, we're here with William Hill speaking on Follow Your Stars. It is a practical thing. It's not just something slogan we're sharing, but we're so glad that those of you here with us and staying with us. Again, if you have a question, that's your last time to ask it before we're ending the session very soon. But ask it right now in the chat because we would love to ask your question to William. But before that, they came again to our attention switch moment, a good opportunity to give attention back to the people who deserve it within the ABA International Law Section global community. So we're going to ask you, William, again, who are the 2 or 3 people that you want to thank within the ABA International Law Section community and why? And I hope they are with us as well.
Sure. Be glad to do that because there are people who are very special. I want to start with my partner, Joe Rea. Joe was the chair, I guess, 3 years ago. We had been very excited about Joe being the chair of the section. He had worked tirelessly in the section. Everyone knows Joe. When I go to ABA International Law Section functions, I introduce myself as Joe Rea's partner, and I, get people lighting up. So that's my calling card as being Joe's partner. But and Joe had the unfortunate luck of taking over on August 1, 2021, in the midst of the lockdown. So he had, worked for years to be the chair of the International Law Section, thinking that would involve going to conferences in fabulous places and meeting people and leading to things. And instead, we spent a year on Zoom conferences. So, but Joe is imperturbable and he's continued on. And as we all know, he's still a fixture and an important part of the section. He got me involved by recommending that I help lead an arbitration masterclass. And many of you are familiar with that. He kind of nominated me to co-chair that with my friend and former partner, Dan Gonzalez, who many of you know, and recommended that I get involved. And then when it was over, encouraged me to get more involved in the section. And of course, the rest is history. And I've been loving being part of the section. And I thank Joe for having the initial nudge for that. The other one that I have to thank is my friend Ed Mullins. So Ed actually had the idea for the masterclass, and so we worked together putting the masterclass together. And then he very much encouraged me to get involved in the section. Ed is a great ambassador for the section. He brings people in. He's been a real leader in the section as well, and has been a huge part of my, continuing to be more and more involved. So I want to thank Ed about that. And the saxophone story is that Ed and I actually come from the same tiny little town in Central Florida. He's 4 years younger than me, but he played the saxophone as well as I did and sat next to my sister in the saxophone section. So she's always asking, how's Ed doing? You ever see Ed? What's going on with Ed? So we go way back to our humble roots in small town Central Florida.
That is awesome. That is really amazing. And now we need to get, there's a famous Bill Clinton playing the saxophone. I can't remember on which. Maybe it was all of a late night television program. So we got to get you and Ed to join together to do some saxophone on at one of our conferences, maybe at one of the closing receptions. So that way, if it doesn't go well, you guys can all just go home. And if it goes great, well, we'll just party on into the evening. So
one more shout out. I want to thank Mandalina Pralashi. I think she's of the other generation of upcoming leaders in the section. She always seems to be at all the functions. She seems to be everywhere at the functions. She also brings people in. She's extremely enthusiastic and just a great leader and example of why it is that this section is going to continue to thrive out into the future. And I feel good about where we're going with our young leaders coming along as well. So shout out and thanks to Mandalina.
And I'm sure Mandalina and also Ed, by the way, reacted. That is a true story, and I look Latin with his other sister. So here you go. So shout out for Ed and Joe and Mandalina. Thank you very much. But we have two questions for you, actually, from the audience, if you allow me, David, to bring it to you.
Please.
So the first one is from Nitushka Tarana, who first thank all of us for creating this space for discussion. But based on your extensive experience, William, working internationally with other law firms, what are the 3 key points you have learned over time that should be implemented to foster better working relationship between firms and achieve the best results from all parties involved? Even if you give us one, it's good enough.
3 key points. Number one is to listen. Whenever you are working with another firm, either having a case being referred to you or maybe bringing somebody else into the case, you really need to listen and learn the case, learn what's happening, learn how your role can be helpful, learn how you can help the people in the firm, because it's much better to be offering something to your colleagues and asking for something. So I'd say number one is to listen, and number two is to be humble. We can't be all things to all people. If a matter comes in to you from another lawyer, another firm or whatever, and you know that there's somebody down the hall that's just done that case or done that transaction, you bring them in and you find the best people. And that takes a bit of degree of humility, but I think it's very valuable.
And the next time there will be a case that you fit in, they'll call you. So that's exactly the other side of the
Exactly.
I mean, there's another question. Thank you very much, William. I hope Natushka has helped you. And another question from EJ Cox, who said, I came on a bit late, but you mentioned the vast number of stars. What advice would you give about finding the right consultation to follow for us non-sailors?
Well, a couple things. Number one, you can only push metaphors so far, I guess. But I'd pick out a constellation that you like the name of, like maybe if you're a Taurus or a Leo, learn how to find that one. But in reality, what we really mean when we put this together for Follow the Stars is find what moves you. Find where your passion is. Find where your talents are. Those are the stars that we're really talking about. And you can name whatever constellation you want, as long as you're remembering that you are really just following your passion and keeping your goals in sight.
Great, thank you, William. And I see only another remark from Peter Quinter. It's a beautiful view from William Hill's office in Miami. Yes, we know it's real, but it's not a good excuse to move to Miami. You have to ask William if it's worth it or not. But follow your own star, the title of this session. Remember, all of you, that remind us that each of us has a unique purpose and calling in life. But embracing our individuality, passion, aspiration, we can pursue the path that align with our authentic self and bring us fulfillment. Again, throughout history, countless individuals, have followed their own stars and leaving lasting legacies in the field such as art, science, literature, and even in our own professional industry. And their achievements really serve as a testament of the power of embracing one's individuality and pursuing our own dreams and stars. As we heard today from William, again, star in our own industry, follow up your stars. So I think, David, one thing left for us before we going to continue talking is to thank William for, again, the fantastic, the time is passing so fast every time. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, William. What a joy to spend the last half hour with you. Really, thank you for sharing your story, and we're looking forward to seeing you continue to follow your stars. And we're excited about the future I'm excited about the future that you have with the international law section. And of course, you mentioned Ed, who is currently the nominee to be the vice chair of the section. So God willing, in 3 years, he'll become the chair of the section, and hopefully, you'll continue to follow his wonderful path. So looking forward to seeing that as well.
Thank you, William. Thank you very much. Don't leave us because David and me are still there, want to talk. So William, we'll say goodbye to you, and we'll leave us with only David and me in the room. And the session with William, was also important, I think, to all of us. But David, what was for you the few insights you want to share with us?
Oh, I love the fact that William allows his clients to see his passions, meaning, you got from him, you could see behind him the sailboats, clearly one of his passions. And he's not afraid to share, his music with his clients either. I mean, I just would be so hesitant. Maybe I'm not going to play the best. But the truth is that if you're who you are and you're sharing what you love and what you care about, actually people find that really attractive and really exciting. And William's willingness to do that and to make a decision about where he's going to practice. I mean, he didn't quite say it as clearly as when we had the opening call, but he decided to be in Miami because he wanted to be in a better sailing environment than New York. I mean, New York has okay sailing, but nothing like Miami. And that was really, a passion of his. And he let that, he wanted that to be part of his life. So exciting to see somebody, make those kinds of decisions and be excited about it, be happy about it, and then use that to attract people around him, because his genuineness is so palpable that people just flock to him.
Great. And I see in the meantime, all the people are joining and thanking, and I really love all their comments. So I'm sorry I'm disturbing you, David, while you're talking. But I think for me, this session with William was also important from another reason, because to understand not only what we need to follow the stars, but who are the stars we need to follow with. I mean, that's many people make mistake. Motivation speaker Jim Rohn once said that we are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. Let me ask each one of you a question. If you want to win the Olympics, will you run after people running faster than you or slower than you? I think it's an obvious answer, right, David? In other words, if your stars will be people who are more successful than you, if you follow them, you'll be more successful, or more or less successful. How do you think? Of course, more successful. When it comes to relationships and growing your practice or in your career, we're greatly influenced by those people around us, whether we'd like to admit it or not. So there better be stars. So, but maybe the stars in your life mean something else. Maybe stars for you, each one of you there, standing for a different abbreviation. S for skills, T for training, A for authenticity, and R for relationship. If you want to have a lesson from the stars that William talked about, that's actually the abbreviation, what he talked about. Maybe even the R for reputation. And the last S for success mindset. So if you follow them consistently, success, as you heard from William, that's the best evidence, is guaranteed. So our friends, it's time to take action, implement what you've learned in this section. Thank you for all of you who see writing. I just want to share all more words of beautiful words people saying. Mandalena, thank you very much. Victoria, Angie, Ed, AJ, Peter, And I see also Sylvia. Thank you very much for all your warm words and being here and listening. I hope you're learning. We all learn together here. That's what I love, David, about those sessions, because you don't know what to expect, right?
Exactly. Oh, I mean, it is so great. I mean, and we didn't even get to charting your own path and how friendship drives business and being present drives business. All of those, I hope people really recognize that there were so many lessons to take from William Hill's words today.
Thank you. And you've been here with William Hill. He's a top litigation arbitration lawyer and wonderful member, supporter of American Bar Association International Law Section. David, it's your turn. I want to thank you again. And every time I thank you, I think it's a amount of months past. So again, for a joyful episode, I'm really looking forward every time for the session, David. So thank you very much for that.
Absolutely. And thank you. Such a pleasure. Always great, great fun. That's what's beautiful about this. I hope people in the audience had as much fun as we did.
Right. And David and myself want to thank each one of you there who's still hanging and standing with us. It's an opportunity for all of us as a community to hang together. So thank you for that. See everyone our next standout episode very soon, I promise, with more interesting guests that join us. For now, from David and myself and everybody in the community and William, of course, thank you, everybody. Bye for now.